Welcome to Deges and Dragons.
I thought this was going to be hard, but...
Welcome to Deges and Dragons.
Who wants some of the Ripper?
They're state champs, baby. Woo!
He's clearly Captain Crunch. I'm a man of the people.
Shattered world.
Ripper knows. Ripper always knows.
And welcome to another episode of the Degecast, the supplemental podcast for our YouTube show, Deges and Dragons. So, they tell me I'm your host, Nate Lindberg, and you can find me on Twitter at Nate Lindberg. And hey, while you're at it, check out my newly launched website, natelindberg.com. You're going to find links to this show, Deges and Dragons, my wrestling podcast, and a bunch of more stuff. Check it out. Hey, and if you want to be part of this show, join us. Email us at degetime@gmail.com, tweet us at degetime, or leave us a voicemail at the Degetime voicemail line at 617-506-9686, and we'll play your voicemails, read those emails, and respond next week. Now, without further ado, let's get this show underway. The following podcast is scheduled for one fall. First, making his way to the mic, hailing from the other side of this Zoom call, he is our veteran RPG gamer, permanent member of our player panel, and now the official Degecast streamer, Tony Cameron Steele Shermooksness. And the crowd goes wild. Ah!
Of course they do. Why wouldn't they?
Steel, hard as steel, hard as steel.
That was amazing.
Wasn't it though? Hey,
that was everything I wanted it to be.
And now I gotta. We just said you are now the official Degecast streamer. So tell us a little bit about what we decided to do between last week and this week, because we didn't talk about this last week.
Yeah, so I guess it's part stir craziness and part just random idea in the middle of the night. But I figured with the completion of our Clink series, which arguably had its ups and downs in the story as far as failure and success goes.
Oh, I'll say.
But heavily towards the fail forward mentality, I'm just thinking it's like, well, I play a lot of games that have a fail forward mentality, and I know a lot of people like watching those kind of games, so I put it to the Discord, which if you guys want to join our Discord, I'm sure we have the links in the description as well.
Yes, click the link in the description to join the Discord.
But yeah, I put it to a vote, and most people wanted to see me stream some Dark Souls 3. So we scheduled the stream for last night. I streamed it for about 4 hours. We had a decent turnout. I had more people in there than I thought we would. The chat was very very active.
4 hours.
That was 4 hours. Yeah.
That was wow. Okay, because my anxiety made me feel like it was 8.
But no, I mean, this is something I think we might do. Might continue on. I don't know if we necessarily have anything like scheduled out like weekly or anything at this point. But we want to. Tony might want to continue on with Dark Souls. I'd like to do maybe some Jackbox games and things with the community. It's not necessarily therapy related in the sense of preaching therapy like we do here on the show or on Deges and Dragons, but in a way it kind of is because it's fun, and fun is also...
Yeah, I would also argue, it helps with the mental health as well. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to lean towards video games to kind of help de-stress and unwind at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So no, I'm happy to announce that, and the stream was a lot of fun. You did a good job. You didn't die nearly as many times as I thought. So I was hoping for a little more Tony death here, Yeah.
And hey, if you guys missed the stream, the raw footage of the stream is on Degetime's YouTube channel, so feel free to check it out.
Yes, it is. Check it out.
I was going to say that the 6 to 8 times Tony said, well, that's never happened to me before, were the best part of the stream for me, because it was obviously insincere. Like, these things had happened to him before, and that was for our benefit,
Yes.
Not display the fact he was probably using some kind of arcane video game cheatery that I just can't figure out.
Not gonna lie, that last boss that I fought definitely acted very strangely,
Yes.
that I was not used to.
Yes. Yes, indeed. However, back on track. And his opponent.
Viewers of a weak disposition might want to turn away now.
Making his way to the mic, hailing from the Game Master chair. Usually. He is our resident therapy and psychology expert, Conrad Poindexter Puny. Dad! Are you ready?
It's just like, I'm speechless. I
mean, it was
coming
your
out to
grand entrance.
Yeah, I mean, like entering to that, you know, I'd be doing all the dance moves, but would just be completely silent and stoic afterward. You know,
Right.
just waiting for the crowd response, and then that would be it.
And I'm sure about 100% of the people listening have no idea what song that was. So look up Bear Force 1 on YouTube, watch the dance, and that's the dance Conrad's talking about. It is
real quick.
fantastic.
If I could chime in, if you guys do a charity stream, that dance, Conrad doing it must be part of the charity stream, because I assure you, I would throw more hard-earned money at that than is safe for my bank account. I would pay to watch that over and over and over.
You
Our
know,
next streaming video.
and you know, you guys are hearing another voice here, so. And now, introducing the special guest referee for tonight's podcast. He is a near lifelong wrestling fan, a longtime RPG gamer, and game master himself. Join me in welcoming to the Degecast, Benjamin, the Mindcreep Powers! And welcome to the Degecast.
Thank you. That sounded way cooler than I thought it was going to. So thank you.
Hey, anytime. I'm here for you
I feel
guys.
welcome. I feel both welcome and overhyped. So I appreciate that.
You know, that's probably the coolest entrance or coolest introduction a guest has gotten on the show so far. So feel special. Feel special.
I do. I cannot tell you how honored I am to have gotten an intro like that to literally anything. They don't do that when I go to work. They didn't do that when I went to school. They don't do that when I enter a room.
Could you imagine anytime you went to work, like, you know, well, if I actually ever went to an office again, today's environment, but walk into the office and all of a sudden your music hits and you walk in, somebody announces you to your cubicle. It would be amazing.
So funny thing about that, we actually had a guy named Dave where I work. And when I would come in the morning on Sundays, he would specifically have entrance music queued up for me when I walked through the front door of the building.
Oh my
Usually it was Nakamura's theme, or it was Kurt Angle's Olympic theme anytime I stepped through the door. And that was the best I've ever felt going into that building. Every other time was not pleasurable. And I like to not make this a topic of discussion going forward on the podcast. This is about fun and happiness and wrestling and togetherness and joy, and our day-to-day grind has no place there.
Well, Dave was good people, so it's good to reminisce about good people.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. But we're not going to talk about him or anything else work-related.
No, we're not. We're going to be talking about wrestling and RPGs and all of that good fun stuff. So you guys, we're now 2 episodes deep into our worldwide wrestling RPG gameplay. This past episode, we saw Cameron Steele take on Duke and Duchess, which was kind of fun. Fun for me to play out a little bit. I really didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I feel like that might have come across a little bit in the episode, but that's okay. I was trying, and it was a lot of fun. But it was supposed to actually be a bit of a different match. I actually had Cameron Steele going up against another player. It was actually going to be the only player versus player match in the game. And unfortunately, that player dropped out like the night before we did this. So this was a yeah, right. So
Oh, I love what you did with his wrestler during the show.
Yes, his wrestler still shows up. I think it's in like the third or fourth
Well,
episode.
shows up in quotations.
Yes, shows up, kind of, sort of. But it wasn't this episode. It's either the third or fourth episode, I think. But
So no spoilers.
yeah, no spoilers. But you'll see what happens with this particular who's supposed to be a player character, but didn't work out. He couldn't come. So it's okay. But I had to kind of scramble to put this match together and figure things out. And I wanted to do actually something completely different with Duke and Duchess a little bit down the line. I was hoping we'd actually make it into the next episode, like we'd actually finish out this one and actually go into the next WWE UCW episode. And I was going to kind of do something with Duke and Duchess because it was supposed to be me and my wife. My wife's online handle is Duchess, something else, but Duchess and something else. So it was Duke and Duchess, supposed to kind of be like think Ric Flair and Miss Elizabeth, even though they were never together. If you guys are wrestling fans,
So
it was
if
kind
you're
of
going
supposed
to
to be that
ego
pairing.
quest this, you're taking Ric Flair, and is that so your ego quest, Nate, is patterned after Ric Flair.
Woo! I can't get that.
You egocentric schmuck.
Right?
I God. Can I? All right. What's my language limit here?
We're sticking for PG. We're sticking for PG.
You darn jerk.
Oh, that's funny.
It suddenly makes so much more sense why Cameron Steele was so malicious toward him now.
I'll be honest, though. Nate didn't tell me that it was based off of him and Gina until well afterwards. And then I profusely apologized to Gina for how I acted.
Yeah, I mean that's the one who should be getting the apology, not Nate. This is his fault.
Exactly. Yeah.
What did you do to my wife? Oh no, it was good. It was good. It was funny though, But yeah, so like that's why things kind of seemed a little bit just off the cuff because it was.
Welcome to the life of the DM.
Yep. So there's a few things I ended up retooling. I don't actually have my original GM notes. I saved over. I wish I still did. I don't remember what the original lineup was, but I do know this match was supposed to be the only player versus player match. But yeah, that's why it seemed a little bit off the cuff and stuff like that because like I said, it was. But I enjoyed it overall. And Cameron Steele, that character, man, that character.
Just chaos incarnate.
That character. That character.
Yeah.
He comes from a dark place.
He does.
He does. Yes,
He does. And this might actually be a good place to kind of talk a little bit about what Conrad, Tony, and I were talking about earlier today, off air here. Cameron Steele is not really
psychopath.
Yeah. He's not necessarily the type of character that I think we would typically portray in one of our games. So one of the things that we talked about in the past, I think on this show, like probably one of the first episodes, if not the first episode, was we were going to end up doing an 18 plus not safe for work version of Deeges and Dragons called Deeges After Dark. And this was going to be the debut episode of Deeges After Dark. And that was back in, I think it was January when we actually shot this, believe it or not. And so back then, we were like, yeah, that's a great idea and all this stuff. And then we had a few other things that happened and, kind of just different partnerships, people we met and kind of different goals and visions throughout, the next like 6-7 months. And we're like, Deeges and Dragons Deeges After Dark probably isn't a good idea. So we did have to edit this version, this episode, or really game series, all the episodes of World Wrestling RPG down a little bit here.
I'm sure I did not make that easy for you.
No.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that you only have about 9 minutes of usable footage of me playing this game.
No. A lot of the themes and things like that, I put spoilers. You guys will see the disclaimers. As we record this, the episodes haven't actually aired yet, but I put disclaimers at the beginning of the episodes. You're saying themes are, not necessarily safe for all audience, and parental discretion should be advised. But I did censor out all the language and things like that. However, some of the themes, like Cameron Steele being a complete psychopath and attacking my wife, probably aren't the themes that, we necessarily want to be touting here on what we're doing. But we did feel like, the footage in and of itself wasn't bad. Wrestling is obviously scripted form of entertainment, and this was, even though I guess he kind of, in a way, looked to hurt her and hurt him in real life in the game and all that, it's still a game and things like that. And I think, we talked about it, and that we decided to go forward and still put it out and, just in the edited form. But going forward, all of our content will be, suitable for all audiences.
Well, I'll make sure then to prep my parents for their inevitable disappointment that I was not featured the way that they raised me to be. They took their time and their effort to mold me into the man that I am today. And the idea of being in a Safe for Work or for Children podcast did not enter into their life plan for me. So thank you for giving me the heads up now so I can adequately prepare Mom and Dad Powers for what they are going to end up getting instead of what they were hoping. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate the heads up.
No problem. I'm glad we could keep your parents informed. Glad we could keep you informed. So obviously last week we didn't really talk too much about our characters and things like that. We got Tom Staup and Zach Haydorn's take on our characters and kind of their overall take of what we're doing, but we didn't really talk too much about our game or get our take on the characters. So I'm going to throw first to Ben here, and we want to see if we can kind of dive into your brain and figure out how you came up with the Mindcreep. And after you do that, we're going to throw it over to Conrad to kind of maybe dive into the brain of the Mindcreep and see what the hell's going on up there.
Okay.
Right?
All right. So the Mindcreep was essentially a product of many sleepless, insomnia-ridden nights when I rediscovered my love-hate of Chris Angel's Mindcreep, which I watched for 6 straight days.
Why would you do that to yourself?
I was kind of delirious by the end of it, but
I guess
at the same time, I heard someone screaming, Mindcreep, in my head nonstop, and it made my day-to-day life more enjoyable because I would hear it during casual conversation with people I didn't want to talk to. And then I remember watching the YouTube David Blaine skit videos, and I remember one part. Yes, that's actually so. The Cheez-Its into orange soda spit out thing, I intentionally brought into the game because I wanted that spot so badly. And the thing with the character was when you watch wrestling is this wacky, wide world that encompasses both hardcore violence and punching and reality-based storylines, but it also has room for goofy, ridiculous silliness. I mean, there's been garbage men wrestlers and clown wrestlers and people with magic powers, and there's especially in Japan, there is so much wackiness. I mean, there are people having matches against invisible opponents, brooms.
Who was it?
Toddlers.
Was it who was it with that? Was it oh god, his name's on the tip of my tongue that had the match with the blow up doll.
Kenny Omega.
That would be Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega. They had a couple matches against the blow up doll, whose name escapes me. It actually has a name and a backstory. I didn't realize Kenny Omega
did too. I didn't realize Kenny Omega. I knew Kota Ibushi did, but
yeah, if you ever get a chance, watch those matches because they are the pinnacle of athletic skill, storytelling, and utter ridiculousness. I cannot recommend them enough. If you're not a wrestling fan, do a YouTube search for Kota Ibushi versus Blow Up Doll. You will not be disappointed.
It sounds ridiculous.
It is, but it's
not.
So good.
Well, it is ridiculous, but it's good.
So when you take those kind of characters and those kind of personalities, I wanted to do something that was so entrenched in having to suspend your disbelief, because again, that's a huge part of wrestling. You know, you see these people that are pretending to be these other people, and they live these larger than life, backstories, and their moves are incredibly athletic. But then you also have some characters throwing lightning bolts at a turnbuckle, or fog comes out of the ground, and these things don't happen in real life, but we kind of get invested in the story. So I thought I would take that to 11 and introduce an aggravating, pretentious, overly dramatic, ridiculous character that had no business winning anything at all, and somehow trying to make it entertaining. And I'd like to think that at least on some small level, I succeeded in. When we watch the episode, you're going to see the description for this character, but it's ridiculous.
You certainly did a better job than Fantasio.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, or Oz, or any other ridiculous magic character that's ever come along. But as I kind of mentioned, the physical description is Chris Angel meets David Blaine with a Sharpie goatee, with dad bod and bad guy liner and all this other stuff. And I was trying to think, like, man, who would be someone I want to punch in the face? And so that's what I came up with. And, I think people were entertained by it, hopefully.
By far.
I feel like you guys were, and hopefully the viewing audience that will see 9.5 minutes of my material on the podcast will enjoy it as well. But yeah, that's kind of the long and the short of it. I wanted to express and explore another part of my hobby, or more accurate would be my lifelong closet love affair, and no closet about it. I'm living out loud with wrestling.
Oh yeah,
I love it in all of its forms. It's been part of my life since I was a kid, and this game really allows me to put a lot of my thoughts and my ideas and be the storyteller and booker that my athleticism and life opportunities never allowed me to be. So I think that's why I love this game so much, and that was my thought process.
All right,
we're now going to analyze me.
Yes. Conrad's going to put you under a microscope.
I mean, the self-analysis of that, I think is excellent. Like looking at the character itself and hearing that explanation, it kind of all just lines up. I would think to myself, like, okay, this guy likes wrestling. He likes, or at least like is familiar with Chris Angel and David Blaine. And the explanation of wanting to just explore the love of wrestling in this direction with suspending belief and whatnot. I think all of that in itself is like it's just cognitively aware. And so there's not really much like clinical need for any of that. And like the goals that would be set would really just be like what he said, like exploring new things with something that I already love. And so, there's no like work to be done there. It's not like we're trying to like, move things in a different direction that might be like more positive or like better strategies or whatever. Because this sounds like a great coping strategy as it is. It's like, I love this. And
very, very much so. I mean, I don't want to kind of jump in, but you mentioned the self-awareness and the coping strategy. I'm someone that's dealt with a lifetime of bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, and I've been through enough therapy where the self-awareness thing has become kind of second nature. But it also, wrestling and role-playing games in general have been one of the things in my life, one of the constants that's allowed me that escape. So I know I didn't want to run over you or anything, but it stuck in my mind when you said that. And, for somebody with these conditions, this hobby, this love, these stories, I think you hit the nail on the head with why I do the things that I do. But it also, I think, dovetails into what you said as a coping mechanism, because it very much so, very, very much so on a lot of fundamental levels.
Yeah, because it's obviously a fun character. I mean, I didn't play as Lazarus Spivey, but it was fun to play alongside Lazarus Spivey. And the creative interactions that followed were great. Because I distinctly recall a moment, and I don't remember what was said, but then my immediate response to laughter was, "Oh yeah, we're definitely rivals." And
Yes.
I really don't remember what the key words were there, but whatever was elicited like a very like explicit response. It's just like, yes, okay, yeah, like I get the whole character concept, and that it just allows me to fall into my character like very easily. So from like a role playing perspective, the ability to suspend belief, as you said before, was pretty easy. I felt like because it was so much fun and so funny. We're just like, okay, like we both get this because my character also is like rather silly, and so like it just added fuel to the fire. It's just like, all right, yeah, we're both like these silly characters for very different reasons.
Your character was art, absolute art.
Absolutely.
I loved loved your character.
Thank you. Yeah, and Lazarus Spivey was also just excellent. And then I mean Cameron Steele was also like fun to have in the roster,
But for different reasons.
Throwing that chaos
also
into the mix.
for very different reasons. The other thing that we see in this episode is how much goes into the entrance. We only have seen one thus far, but especially with the way like Nate edited it, which was fantastic job.
Fantastic.
Hey, thanks.
Kudos to Nate.
Yay.
But it created this environment where we were able to just fall into the characters very easily.
And entrances in wrestling, that's a very integral part of it, because that pageantry, that music is the intro to telling the story about that character before they even get in the ring. If you see someone having an opera background, but that is his coming to the ring with that music and his mannerisms, is for the people that have never seen the character before and have never watched the show before and have no idea who this wrestler is. That is the brief 1 minute to 90-second way that the audience is introduced to that character. They can see by the way he moves, by the way he acts. It's like, okay, this guy's a jerk. We should boo him. This guy's obviously, a good guy. We should cheer him. His music's really cool. I like that. This is how he's dressed. That elicits a response. So when you talk about that, Conrad, like the entrances and whatnot, that's a huge, huge part of wrestling as a whole. And again, so far you and I are in complete agreement on literally everything. You hit the nail on the head as far as what the entrances did during the show.
Yeah. No, and to Ben's point, entrances in wrestling are exactly really what he just said. It's like it is that 60 to 90 second window to like actually get to figure out who this person is. And there's a lot of times too where you'll watch matches on TV, and sometimes some of the lower card guys, like the jobbers being people they're designated to lose. They're there to make other people look good. They actually won't even get an entrance on TV. They'll get an entrance, in the arena probably, that wasn't actually televised or anything like that. But on TV, when you actually watch it back, they didn't have an entrance, and there's a reason for that. They don't want you to get invested in that character. They're just there as cannon fodder. They're there just to really get their ass handed to them and make the other person look strong. And when you get that, when you do get that extra when you get that entrance, you get that extra level of connection with the audience, and you kind of really start to build off of that. That even if you've never been in front of an audience before, or there's a brand new character or whatever, that entrance can literally make or break a character. That very first time you step through the curtain with your music playing and you're going to do the theatrics, and that pageantry can literally make or break a character. If you don't show up right, you don't do it right, or it's not, booked or produced right. It could be a complete failure, a complete flop for your career.
If you're built up as a major, unstoppable force villain, and then your debut is you're supposed to break through a wall, and you trip and fall on national pay-per-view,
and your helmet
your
falls
purple
off.
sparkled stormtrooper helmet that they thought was going to look scary falls off your head. There's no way to save that.
No,
the first, and that's a real thing, by the way, for those who are listening. There was again, look it up on YouTube, the phrase Shockmaster. It's, again, art and totally worth it. And I'm sorry for running away with the conversation.
I was thinking about bringing up the Shockmaster, but I'm like, it wasn't an entrance. It was a backstage vignette. But you know what? There's no better example of what I was talking about than that particular skit. Google it, the Shockmaster, and the character wasn't going to go anywhere anyway. It was a pretty bad character, but that was the final nail in the coffin of the Shockmaster, and that was his debut. He debuted and failed all at the same time. It was spectacular. So we touched a little bit on Poindexter Puny. So Conrad, now you're going to get to self-analyze.
Oh yeah. So a lot went into the creation of Poindexter Puny, and so there was a whole bunch of things that I juggled around, and one thing that I was aware of was the roles that people would have to take on inevitably as part of it. So like the hardcore, the jobber, and well, I mean, you guys know a lot more than me. High flyer, technician, I think. So there are all these different roles, and one thing that I was doing is like I'm a player in this, where I'm the game master otherwise, and this is really Nate's first foray into playing as a game master. So that kind of like pushed me towards, well, I think that I'll take on the role of the jobber who will just do whatever it takes to make the show look good. And so where we're like switching seats, and I'm like, I want to be supportive of Nate's and help with that. So that was one thing that I kept in mind. So then I was like, all right, now if I'm going to be this jobber, like how did I get into wrestling, and what's the reason that I'm in this position? And it's like it is of course a mindset where it's like, okay, I'll do like what it takes to get there. But then at the same time, like if I worked my whole life to become a wrestler, in spite of my background and everything, there should be something else that I just can't control that held me back. And so that was kind of when I started thinking of the puny hands. And it's like, all right, yeah, like that's just not something I control. Like my hands are the size they are.
I laughed for 4 hours anytime that was brought up during that episode, during the game, during everything we did. And you're going to see this on tape. Anytime Conrad mentioned Dexter's tiny baby hands, I went into hysteric, hyena-like laughter. And I'm glad I had my mic on mute, because when you just mentioned that again, I cackled like a witch seeing a kid fall into like a cauldron.
Yeah. And because obviously like your hands are just 100% necessary to wrestling, where like grappling is like the history of wrestling.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, if I can't grapple anybody, I'm constantly fumbling that. It doesn't really matter like how hard I work. I can't change that. So that would be something that held me back. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm going to overcome this no matter what. And here I am, like in this professional league. So, those kind of things were coming together. I'm like, all right, puny. And then I kind of wanted the alliteration. So I'm like, all right, what are some like P names? And, obviously like Paul Puny came up, and I just didn't want to be, didn't want to do that.
We tool on Paul enough.
Yeah, and then in terms of like famous wrestlers, like not that I like know a lot, but like Paul Bearer, like I know is like a guy who is like Undertaker manager. So I wanted to have a more unique name, and I was like, I bet you once I got to Poindexter, it's like there probably isn't a Poindexter in wrestling, and if there is, they're probably like lesser known. That I could be wrong, but yeah, I mean Nate will know.
I mean, I think they called him IRS.
Well, no, that was Erwin R. Shyster, not Poindexter. Believe me, the second he said that, I started going through my mental Rolodex, and
I'm glad we came to the same place.
Yeah, I can't think of an actual Poindexter. Not. I mean, there's Dexter, but there's
Dexter
no
Loomis.
Dexter
No
Loomis.
Poindexter, yeah.
Anyways, no. Conrad is actually 100% correct, and obviously someone might chime in on Discord or whatever refuting us, but I think you're actually right. I can't think of a legit Poindexter wrestler. So hats off, man. I am very, very impressed.
And so then like getting to Poindexter, that just clicked. That wasn't something that like took like a lot of thought afterward to be Pointer Puny, because it's like Poindexter, Pointer Puny. And that just came. Once I got Poindexter, then Pointer just came very naturally. And, then of course a detour to, at some point, like, oh, so what would my fans look like? And it's like Pointer. And it's like, okay, that's very easy because there are foam fingers like already exist. And now we have like baby size, like foam fingers.
Which was a fantastic addition.
Absolutely.
I tried to hit
myself.
mutant time, but I couldn't stop myself. The baby hand
The baby fingers.
They were the best part of that entire game.
So and then just from there, I wanted to have like a background too that was different than wrestling. Like not like my parents were wrestlers. Like this was like my own thing. And then man, I actually can't remember how I got to the like Italian part, but then that like went hand in hand with my parents being like the opera singers, because there's just so many great Italian arias, and that was kind of like a part of myself that I brought in. So every character that I create, I try to always like explore like something new. Like I just like want to, as part of my role-playing experience, like I want to look at so many different points of view and like parts of humanity in general, but at the same time, like it's still got to be me. Mm-hmm. And there's always something. And my own background, like I sang for years, and I was in multiple choirs and whatnot. So I was able to connect to myself there. But then on the other hand, it's like, okay, like I was an athlete, but I never wrestled, and my hands are actually like the opposite. Like, I have like long fingers, and then to be like a jobber in like something, that was kind of new for me too. Like I've never like role played like, okay, like I'm the team player that'll like do whatever it takes, team, like
yeah, usually you're like the big hero white knight, like I'm coming to save the day, sir.
Well, in context though of what you were saying, where Nate's running and you want to help him, I mean that's both selfless and remarkably self-aware, as a way of kind of parlaying that. And hey man, kudos, because that's actually really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. And so and then Nate's also like Italian historically, and like he says
the last name Lindbergh, sauce. I'm still Italian.
Yeah. Spaghetti sauce is gravy.
I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to comment on it. I was going to let that one fly by.
Then once I had this character, that's when I got to have, a little bit more fun. You see in my entrance, just like the silly touches, because I also I always find that humor always makes everything better at some point. you know, like no matter how low like I myself get, at some point like humor is going to help me out.
You got to laugh at something.
Yeah. And so that's really like how Poindexter Pointer Puny came to be.
Cool.
And I guess in terms of like what I would want to work for clinically is just kind of what I said. You know, like I'm always just looking to explore new things and see what it's like to role play things that aren't me, but
Sure.
also like, and then connect them to things that are me and like find those like commonalities.
No, it makes sense. Definitely makes sense. I feel like that's a good way of doing it. You know, there's like one of the, and you guys will hear this anytime you listen to one of our interviews with creators, is one of the things we'll ask is, you know, actually, no, sorry, I take that back. It's not in the creators. One of the things that you guys will hear when we talk to the players in their player wrap up after the games in Dungeons and Dragons is, you know, how did you learn something new? And now I understand where that question came from. You know, you kind of want to always explore something new, and you always want to bring something new into that character. You know, I can kind of like that's something that I kind of try to do too. I just really didn't think about, you know, always doing it. It wasn't like I intentionally tried to, you know, was trying something new. But you know, you kind of inadvertently do that a lot of times when you're role playing. You kind of get put into situations where, because obviously you're not playing yourself, you know, so you get put into a situation where you got to think, okay, what is my character going to do here? Not what is Nate going to do here. So no, I can. I think that's a really good way to approach, you know, to approach it. So yeah, kudos to you.
That, and I mean, just about every game system out there just gives you a plethora of options to create your character. So it's really hard to just kind of streamline. It's like, okay, I'm only ever going to do this one thing. When you have just so many options at your fingertips, it's like, well, I could just do one thing, but this looks really cool, and that seems really fun. My friend did that; it was really cool. I want to do that too.
Yeah,
and a lot of that's comfort too. I mean, the more you do it,
exactly,
the more you find yourself thinking of those other avenues. You know, when you first start playing a game, you get that one character in your head that's like, you know, I think this would be really cool, and you'll find after you play a couple characters, you're like, oh man, I don't know why I thought that was cool. You know, I've got all this other stuff that I've come up with since then that is such a, and it's a lot like writing. You know, the first couple times you write something, you know, you think, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. But then you go back after your 10th edit or 10th revision and you look back at it and you're like, man, I'm so much better now. You know, and at least that's how it is for me with role-playing games. You know, you do
I absolutely agree. I mean, Ben, you can contest to this. Is like, I mean, Ben and I have known each other for a while now. He was actually the one who introduced me to my current gaming group, who he is a part of as well. And when he introduced me to these folks, I think I'd only known you, Ben, for probably only a couple of months at that point.
It was probably about a year. Roughly.
Yearish, yeah. We definitely bonded over video games.
Yes.
And then when
that was our gateway drug.
Yeah, and then when Ben found out that I also had a mild interest in tabletop gaming, he was just like, I'm going to run a game. You should join. And that character I made for that game, looking back at it, was probably one of the most boring characters I made. He was like this rogue scout made in the 3.5 D&D rule set. He was very quiet because Tony, the player, was very anxious about meeting all of these new people. I didn't know anybody at the gaming table other than Ben, and even still, I didn't know him very well. And now, you know, they can barely get me to shut up at the table nowadays.
I didn't want to say it. I wasn't going to say it. I didn't want to say something to the effect of, boy, do I miss those days. But no, you're totally right. You know, and it's also introverts and extroverts.
Oh, yeah, no, I am.
An introvert can bring themselves out of their shell with a game like this, and an extrovert can, as long as they rein themselves in and let other people have some time. I'm kind of guilty of that myself, as you guys may be noticing while we're recording this. You have a chance to perform, which is another huge aspect of the games, especially for people I find that run them. You get a chance to kind of get these stories out and these ideas out. And it's like the perfect way for all of these different people, introverts, extroverts, people with learning disabilities, people who are writers, or whatever walk of life. It's a way of bringing everybody to that one common playing field, that one common denominator, where they can all just pretend to be in a world that is hopefully more fun and better than the one that they're in. So that way, when they leave this world at the table with their friends, they can see that world maybe a little bit better, in terms of a little more hope than they did, before they got to the table. You know what I mean?
No, 100%, 100%. So Tony, we just talked about your most boring character. Now let's talk about a character that is far from boring. Cameron Steele.
Conrad, I have to hear what your analysis is after this, because I have spent way too long trying to analyze this, and I want a professional to do it.
So little bit of a background, and I think we touch on this actually in the wrap up to the World Wide Wrestling RPG. So the last episode 6. But Cameron Steele was a character in Ben's Worldwide Wrestling RPG. So that's why Ben has had a lot more time to stew on the inner workings of Cameron Steele than both Conrad and myself. So yes, I think Ben is certainly looking forward to that, as am I.
Yeah, so let's see. Cameron Steele. So I guess a little bit of, backstory. So the gaming group that Ben and I both belong to, we've been gaming together for like 15-ish years now. And for like the last 5 or 6 years, every August or so, which we're actually looking to go, and I think it's the next week or two, to go up to this cabin in Maine that we all just get together for the long weekend, and pretty much just drink and game all weekend in one form or another. Responsibly, obviously. Drink responsibly.
Yes, children.
Or
responsible adults.
Yeah, responsible adults. Yeah, children, don't drink responsibly. Don't drink at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody take that first bit out of context.
Juice as you want.
Yes, juice. Juice is healthy.
Water. No.
But yeah, so that's one thing to keep in mind, that the creation of Cameron Steele, I was half lit while I was making the character. I guess another aspect of myself as a gamer is I personally love to make my friends laugh, especially at the gaming table, by just doing fun stuff in-game. So if I can get a row out of my fellow gamers, I feel like I've had a successful session.
Yeah.
And I think Yeah.
Those are fun too.
So I feel Cameron Steele kind of took that to the extreme, where I'm just like, what's the craziest crap I can get away with in this? And we've had a few seasons of Ben's tabletop game for the wrestling show, where we are in the Hampton Beach Combat League. And when Cameron Steele was originated, he was actually the tweaker subtype, which is very drug involved. So you get bonuses for showing that you are on drugs in show, stuff like that. So the OG Cameron Steele's entrance he'd be coming out to Andrew WK while doing whippets. Obviously, he doesn't do that anymore.
He's turned over a new leaf.
Yeah, well, the funny story. Yeah, it's just funny story after funny story. So
I don't even know the story.
Because I didn't tell this story. So at the end of, I kind of hinted at it a little bit in his promo reel. So at the end of the first season of Cameron Steele, he almost killed a guy with a nail bat.
Oh.
And he was arrested for that. But
it was the first time I ever had to have a player face logical, reality-based consequences for something he did in the game.
And I thought of in-game reasons to get out of it too.
Yes, you did. You did a very creative job of getting out of a assault with deadly intent charge
by being white and rich.
Oh man.
Yeah, topical.
Yeah, right.
So season 2, the Federation decided that Cameron Steele needed a new image, and he was going to be a good Christian boy. But Cameron Steele still had a little bit of influence over how his appearance came out. So they're just like, well, you need good Christian music in your intro, and you can't be outlandish. You can't do drugs anymore. So Cameron Steele was like, what's the most annoying music I can use for my intro? Oh, Youth of the Nation by POD. Let's go.
Fantastic.
All apologies to any listeners that are POD fans.
I don't apologize for anything. And so the story is Cameron Steele's story arc in that season was just him sticking it to the man at every opportunity, to the point where at the end of that season he did a gimmick change to hardcore, which is what he was at the beginning of this game, where he just is pretty much just this crazed psychopath who's just only out to hurt people. And I mean, he was like that when he was a tweaker as well. I think his technical first appearance in Ben's game was during somebody else's match. I think our buddy Josh went underneath the ring to get like a steel chair or something, and he lift up the skirt of the ring. And I'm just like, well, you see me under there. And Ben's like, what? I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I've been waiting under there the entire time. And Ben just kind of went with it, and I interrupted the match, and I think I ended up getting run out of the match, and the match finished without any issue. But then I think later in that season, he had just this little fluff piece of an NPC versus NPC combat, which Ben had anticipated to just be like this 30-second description, and I'm like, nope, interrupting that too. So I ended up injuring another wrestler because we had a little bit of a beef earlier in the season because he wouldn't take my $20, and I felt insulted. So I figured I'd have a bruiser hockey player just uppercut him to the point where he did get back up. So Cameron still just
Bruins honored line.
Cameron Steele just has a horrible track record of just violence, disregard for other people, and the lack of any consequence or the need to take responsibility. Because in my mind, Cameron Steele has never, needed to worry about consequences because he grew up being very rich. He didn't have to worry about consequences because daddy would just buy him out of those issues. It's like, oh, he got another parking ticket, we'll just pay off the town. We don't have to worry about, the other 70 that he has in his glove box. Stuff like that, misdemeanor crimes or major crimes, they just kind of get swept under the rug. Yeah, so like we can't think of anybody nowadays that, fits descriptions like that at all who
no, not at all.
No. But anyway, so that was kind of my mindset. I just wanted to create this horrible person who had no awareness of what he was doing to other people and no sense of consequences afterwards. So I don't know what that says about me, but hey.
So Conrad, have a field day with that one.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
I mean, the basis of Cameron Steele would definitely be any therapy that he did do would be court mandated.
I did mention parole officers, so
say like
Season 3.
It wouldn't be taken seriously. Like if right from the start, like if your parents bought you out of every situation and they didn't feel any need to punish you, and then you yourself have now developed to where this is your worldview, you yourself are also going to be I guess immune to the very like idea that there's something wrong with you in any capacity, or that you need help outside of money. But anyway, we'll look at it from a few different ways. So first of all, like if you were going to a place to begin this process and develop your character and whatnot, and you showed up intoxicated, that, first of all, would be the first thing that we'd look at, where he was created under the influence to begin with.
Yes.
They'd be like, sorry, did you show up to like character creation like drunk? So we'd be, start looking at substance use issues there. But even if that like wasn't the case,
And just for the record, I was not intoxicated during the Dungeons and Dragons episodes at all.
No.
I'm referring, specifically to
Right, the original creation.
Yeah, the original creation. And so then even like removing the literal aspect of that, but the glorification of it, it's like, okay, so why are substances being glorified to this point where, obviously it's a character archetype within the game system, but we don't really get into the, like, you technically play two roles in the game. Like, you play like this character who's then playing a character. But we really only touched on the wrestlers specifically rather than like the home life aspect, which, like the tweaker has some home life issues, and that's like challenges that arise. So they are treated, as like, this is a person who's in need of assistance outside of the wrestling ring for their habits. And then to look at the glorification of harm, like the wrestlers themselves, are tangling, but it's a competition. It's like, okay, it's layered with entertainment. So we do these things where, like Kurt Angle, and they're like, he's gonna snap his ankle when he's doing like the ankle lock there. But at that point, like he's being booed. And it's like the fans themselves aren't like, we don't want to see harm to people. But it's for the sake of entertaining and building up a villain. Like Kurt Angle himself right there isn't actually trying to like permanently like remove the other people in the wrestling roster. So
in the story he might be, but in real life he's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus like Cameron Steele, it's both. It's like,
right.
Okay, like in the story, he's actually definitely supposed to be doing less damage than he plans on inflicting to these people. So that would definitely like raise some flags on the intake. It's like, I'm sorry, like you're setting out to more or less like kill like the other people like in like the wrestling world. Like these are like your coworkers. So then I'm like, what's going on like at his job where he like wants to like permanently remove his coworkers in this game?
Wait, Tony and Ben, didn't you guys work together?
Yeah, we did. We worked together for a long time.
Yeah, I'm praying there's no actual correlation, but as Conrad is talking, I'm becoming progressively more anxious. Because you're bringing to light things that I hadn't thought of before regarding my relationship with Tony. And I might not finish this stream. I'm gonna try to hang in there though.
Okay. All right. Good.
Don't worry, Ben. We're miles away. Or are we?
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, with that virtual background, like
right? I could be anywhere.
I'm in a bedroom.
I'm in Delaware.
Yeah. Of course, like we look at the use of games to perform, or to vent violence in a non-violent way. Like it's a great thing that like, well, it's Tony in this case, but like whoever is portraying, if someone else like portraying Cameron Steele, like whoever that like real person was, it's a great thing that they're not doing like missile drop kicks and like trying to like, snap necks like when they're doing it.
Right.
That's good. But then at the same time, I'm like, okay, so the only way to channel like this anger is to then simulate yourself as a real person, like inflicting major injuries on other pretend real people, then we might need to work on some other coping strategies.
Yeah. A little bit.
So
Can I make a confession?
Sure.
So nobody on this this call knew me when I was much younger. So I was in Nate and Conrad. We all met in high school. Ben later in our adult lives. But when I was younger, I had horrible anger issues. I was incredibly violent, which I think kind of bled in a little bit to my teens. As Conrad's story of the first time he met me hitting Nate with the steel chair kind of bleeds into that a little bit.
Or, my story of you setting my socks on fire while I was
Yeah, there are all these stories of me, hurting supposedly my best friends.
I now feel like I got off kind of easy.
right?
Yeah, and I mean, I still kind of have issues with anger, but it's mostly under check. I don't physically hurt people anymore because I know that's wrong. I know that's bad, so I don't do it. But I think I did kind of channel maybe too much of that anger into Cameron's style.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
But no, but hey, it's certainly made for an entertaining character.
yeah, and once you're at a point where you have control like over things like that, and we can look at it that Cameron Steele is yet just another like really ridiculous character where he himself, like it's so crazy like how violent he's acting within like the realm of this game that we look at it that way, and it's like so outlandish that it then becomes humorous, like the way the rest of the roster is. Everybody is like to a point where it's like they go to these extremes where it's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty outlandish and blends together. And I think that's why like Cameron Steele works in this roster, because it's like taken to that level where it's like,
Right.
okay, it's just ridiculous at this point.
Oh yeah.
Like his whole entrance, like he runs to the ring in like a handcuffed, and like the police are hot on his tail. But at the same time, he's allowed to like go through a match. So it's just like, okay, yeah, this is all
Completely ridiculous. And it's kind of funny too, because, well, not really funny, but in real life, Cameron Steele probably wouldn't ever last in wrestling. He probably wouldn't have got this far. Because obviously you're going out there to try and it's a dance. You're going out there to dance with your partner. It's not you're not actually going out there to do boxing or MMA or anything like that. You want to go out there and put on a performance with your partner, with your quote opponent. And people that go out there and intentionally hurt people, and it happens. You've got wrestlers that go into the ring and they're supposed to have a match or whatever, and they intentionally hurt somebody. A lot of times they end up getting blackballed from companies, and multiple companies, and eventually the industry. So I don't even think Cameron Steele would have even made it to UCW after hearing some of these stories.
And
Well,
honestly,
the fun
that was
part
kind
is-
of like a story beat for Cameron Steele as well, because without I think asking Ben, I just declared that Cameron Steele's dad owned the Hampton League Combat League or the Hampton Beach Combat League,
which I did refute. I made him a sponsor. One thing I also kind of, Nate said something that I also want to touch on in regards to being blackballed for intentionally hurting people. There is a definite subset of it's deathmatch wrestling. And
Oh yeah,
if anything,
yep.
those are some of the goriest, most awful, violent things you'll ever see. But it's done with trust, and it's done with mutual, I don't want to necessarily say respect, because a lot of the performers do want to have that reputation as being, hardcore. But that kind of violence is actually more need for that protection, more need for
Right.
that. So I agree that a person, I hesitate to use person, a caricature like Cameron Steele definitely would not have in any way, shape, or form been allowed to do this more than once.
Right.
But because it is a game, and because it is a fantasy scenario, and because Tony's my friend, and I want to let him play his character the way he wants to play it, it's there.
Yep.
And that would be like an intake question too, where like it's like, okay, I have this whole concept of like this violent character. Like you would definitely be asked, so why isn't he fired after one match? And that would be something that like you would unpack with that person on the spot, you know, like as a reflection of their own lives, you know, like to think a little bit further ahead. Like if I were to go through with like a violent act, like why do I think that I would be like okay after that? Because it would really be parallel to real life. It's like, it's just like Cameron Steele, you're going to injure somebody your first match on purpose that everybody's going to know about. Then if you did something like that in real life, like why would you think that things would just progress okay? You know, so there again, it's like another like right up front, like when we're going through this character creation process, like the autonomy to make what you want is important because you need to role play and practice out, you know, your whatever issues that you're struggling with, and then strategies to overcome them. But at the same time, it's like the mindset of it. So how would Cameron Steele actually make it into like a group like this, you know? And we'd ask all these questions up front, and that's why like what Nate was saying a while ago now, but like how would Cameron Steele's a little bit different than the norm for our groups here. And now I guess that's like the best explanation of it is on the intake and the mindset going into it, you know, make a big difference. So,
yeah. Cool.
And I think I also wanted to bring Cameron Steele into this game for similar reasons that Conrad wanted Poindexter Pewdie in this game, because we both knew that this was one of Nate's first times ever running a game. So Conrad made a character to try to help Nate along the way, and I used a character I knew would cause way too much chaos for Nate.
and
Here I was showing up just thinking I'd have fun. I didn't have an ulterior motive. I just wanted to mark out for myself and make my friends laugh.
Well, the great thing, I didn't
Right?
even think of that until like Conrad mentioned he made his character to kind of help Nate out. And I'm just like, wow, did I subconsciously put Cameron Steele into this game just to mess with Nate? I think I did.
It wouldn't
Watching
surprise
the
me.
dynamic between the three of you is fascinating as an outside observer. Just putting that out there.
No, I mean it. I mean, hey, I certainly appreciate it because it was, my first. Okay, so it wasn't my first foray into being a GM. I talked about that actually a couple weeks ago when we talked to David Sherdoin, the creator of Clink. Clink was the first game that I actually GM'd for my wife and a friend of ours. But it was like it was only two of us. Well, two players. It was three people total, so two players, and we only played for about an hour and a half before our buddy had to go home, kind of unexpectedly. So I don't really consider that like an actual GM experience. It was kind of like barely dipping my toe in the water to see what temperature was. This was really my first time actually stepping into that role, and not only am I doing it for the very first time, I'm doing it on camera for three people that are experienced GMs. So it was a little nerve-wracking, not gonna lie, but but hey, I got through it.
Yeah, and on honestly, that first GMing experience, especially with experienced players, because I can speak from that too, because I'm sure Ben can remember the first time I decided to take the GM mantle at our gaming table. I too was a nervous wreck. I just like worried that's like, oh, these guys have been playing these tabletop game for like 20-30 years now. I'm still a novice. Nothing I think of is gonna entertain them. And then you sit down at the table and hopefully everybody has a good time. And in your case, Nate, we all had a good time. And I guess Ben can answer if I'm an adequate DM.
You're good. You're good. I mean, there's also the flip side too, where if you play for so long and you're a GM, eventually you start to look at things with trepidation because you feel like you've done it all before and that your players have seen it all before. And so you wonder if you can hold their attention anymore.
And I think that's why, like, in my early stages of dungeon mastering, I used a lot of, like, monsters that we never utilized before, or, a lot of, like, story beats. Like, I had time traveling and timelines in my storyline. I had extra planar travel without my players knowing about it.
Yeah.
I had all of this stuff that we usually don't touch on in our usual gaming. So I'm just, like, trying to think of ideas. It's like, what can I make these guys who have been doing this for, as long as I've been alive to entertain these guys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This game also allows you to look at other parts of the world and kind of see how they would intersect. Like in the game I run for Tony and my friends, I have a lot of I have a lot of characters and a lot of plot lines that I try to be respectful of. A lot of them featuring LGBTQ characters. One of my players actually has an NPC that is his boyfriend. And I wanted to have that because one of my biggest problems with wrestling, at least a while back, is that those anyone that identified as queer, it was played up as a laugh, or it was played up as a joke, or it was played up as a storyline. I wanted to bring that in as a respectful way, and I did it because I knew my players would also do it respectfully, and that's something that you don't always get. And so I wanted to say that you can explore a lot of themes with this. You can be silly with this. You can be, hardcore realist with this. But in the end, especially for long-term wrestling fans, this gives you a chance to run a federation and run plot lines the way that you envision in a perfect world what it would look like. If all these different people were to come together and collaborate on physical athletic storytelling. And so, yeah, this is my favorite system. This is my favorite role-playing game. This is the one that I feel like I've been able to embrace. And I played everything from second ed D&D to 8 million gaming systems. I'll never get to truly embrace and play. I have a collection called The Sad Place, which is a bookshelf of all the games I'll never get to run. Tony's seen it. It's pathetic. But
I mean, I guess it depends on your point of view. I mean, it's a very vast shelf.
This is my favorite game for a number of reasons, and I want to thank you for letting me play it because I've only gotten to run it. I want to thank you guys for not only being welcoming, but really getting on the collaborative aspect, because that's a huge part of this campaign and this system, and just generally including me. It was nice to be invited, and I hope that it was entertaining. I hope people, when they watch it, they are into it, and I would be more than happy to jump in again at some point if we decide to make a season 2, or if you guys want to try some time in the Hampton Beach Combat League.
I'd be down with that. I'd be down with that, whether we recorded it or not. Spend some time with Cameron Steele and Captain Yadude.
Captain Yadude.
Who you guys
the Wailing Wall, the Maple Gringo. There's a lot of interesting characters.
Is amazing.
Isn't he a Canadian luchador?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's
I remember
Nova Scotia, Mexico.
Yep, I remember Jobin telling me about that.
Josh is incredible. I love his promos.
Oh, that's great. I can see him being good at that. All right, guys, this has been another episode of the Degecast. Ben, like I said, thank you very much for coming out today and talking with us and being a part of our worldwide wrestling RPG gameplay as a whole. And for Conrad and for Tony, I'm Nate Lindberg, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.